All right. Thank you, ISPE, for letting me come on stage and talk about something really exciting that we are embarking on, or we have embarked on in the past year and a half. The concept is called Cleanrooms on Demand, and I'm going to talk about how we thought about the idea and the current state, and a little bit about how the business works. So Azzur Group traditionally has been a consulting company doing a lot of project management, validation, consulting in terms of quality support and so on. So especially in the Cambridge, Boston area with a lot of startup action, what we found over the last 5 to 6 years was there were some common industry challenges that we saw. And I've tried to list some of those here. The biggest challenge really was finding GMP space for manufacturing operations, especially for early phase activities, whether it be preclinical or early phase clinical activities. In addition to that, we saw a recurring theme of lack of GMP expertise, lack of a proper quality management system, and lack of infrastructure to allow for some of the support functions to be compliant to GMP standards. Things like the front end and back end supply chain, materials management, inventory control, and things of that nature. Of course, any of these startups today have two options. One is either go to a CMO or a CDMO who will completely take the process off their hands and give them, hopefully, a good quality product batches for their front-end clinical manufacturing. The other option, obviously, is to go build your own facility, which has its own drawbacks, such as lengthy design and build, installation qualification times, and of course the cost associated with both the CapEx but also the OpEx cost of routinely maintaining it. So when we saw these industry challenges over and over again, we decided to try and solve it somehow. And what we did was we came up with a business model called Cleanrooms on Demand. And what it is really almost like a bridge facility where instead of building your own facility or going to a CMO, you can lease some space, lack of a better word, lease some clean room space in our facility that we own, monitor, and make sure it's GMP compliant. And the clients come in, make a few batches, either whether it be preclinical or clinical, without having to have the burden of ownership of a facility or maintenance of a facility. In addition, they completely eliminate the need for a third party in terms of manufacturing their process by implementing their own process changes, their own operators and own equipment in our facility. It's almost like a hybrid between a CMO and owning your own facility, right? So this is what a typical clean room looks like that we have in our facility. We currently have 3 that are operational and pretty much booked till end of 2022. We are building 3 more that is on track to be built by the end of this year, which are also sold out. So we are embarking on a journey to build about 15 more next year, 6 in the current location, which is in Waltham, Massachusetts, which is our center of excellence for this business, and 9 more in San Diego, and hopefully a lot more beyond that in the coming years. And the design is really ISO 7 core with biosafety cabinets for some aseptic operations that we own, maintain, clean, monitor, and so on. And the client just has to come in, gown up, make their batch with their equipment, and then move out, put it in the clinic, and wait for the clinical results without having to worry about owning a facility or worrying about schedules at a CMO site. Along with the clean rooms, we take care of all the other infrastructure and quality management that is required to be in compliance with GMPs. Things like security, access control, pest control, backup power, alarm notification remotely. So we completely remove that burden from our clients so that they focus on the science, we focus on the compliance. Along with clean rooms, obviously, in order to make GMP batches, you need to make sure your materials that come in are released in a quality fashion. So we are able to perform those services as well, again, to let the clients focus on what's going on in the clean room itself. So we do, receipt, inspection, labeling, segregation, movement, and staging of materials for each batch based on a bill of materials that the clients provide us. So again, the client really walks in and just makes their batch and not have to worry about that front end. Similarly, in terms of any sampling or testing of raw materials, we can do that on site with a limited number of ID tests. But anything more complicated, we have labs in North Carolina and Pennsylvania that we can ship samples to for testing, both for raw materials but also for in-process and final product testing. So we are trying to basically cover, anything that we can in terms of services and solutions to enable the clients to really focus on the groundbreaking science that's happening, especially in the startup realm. Now, the talk that just preceded me from GE had one particular slide talking about cell and gene therapy and how there's a huge need for viral vectors. Yes, I think it was 70% of the cell and gene therapy companies have a need for viral vector manufacturing, capacity of which is not available. That's just one example. Our clean rooms are designed for early phase, but it can house cell and gene therapy, traditional mAb products, microbiome products, maybe even small molecules. So it's really a very flexible model. These are modular clean rooms, so we can easily add, remove certain panels, increase the square footage, add pass-through boxes, and so on. So really meant for flexible manufacturing options for early phase clients. So this slide summarizes the value proposition that we have to offer in comparison to the traditional approaches, which is either building your own manufacturing facility or going to a third party, whether it be a CMO or a CDMO. The biggest value proposition that we have to offer is really speed. We are actually selling time here. So a client that goes to a CMO, the tech transfer startup process can be 6 months, 12 months, maybe even more, depending on the complexity of the process and the maturity of the CMO. In our case, as long as our clients are ready with their operators and equipment, they can move in, to any clean rooms because we monitor and keep the clean rooms compliant, whether there's a client in it or not. Similarly, if you were to go build your own facility, the startup of a facility takes anywhere between a year, year and a half, 2 years, maybe more, again, depending on the size and complexity of the process in the facility. Again, in comparison, clean rooms on demand is a matter of months, not years. The record that we have set for ourselves is 6 weeks. So the time, this is an example of a client called Synologic information that I can share with you. They came to us last year saying we are in a little bit of a pinch here. There's no CMO that will take our microbiome product. There's just one CDMO that will take it, but they're asking us a ridiculous amount of money. We don't have a facility. We've heard of this business. Can you guys accommodate us somehow? At that point, we didn't have a clean room for them, so we actually designed and built a clean room in our warehouse to accommodate their microbiome process. And they are in that clean room, and they're going to be in that clean room till 2022. So that really, is an example of our flexibility and our vision to really accelerate the front-end manufacturing life cycle for groundbreaking therapies. That's really our vision. And the clean rooms on demand business really ties in with that vision. Now, in addition to speed, some of the other things that we have to offer in terms of a value is, the intellectual property that you have to share with a CMO, that doesn't apply if you come to clean rooms on demand. In terms of control and flexibility, you are in control of your destiny in terms of, your product batches, because you're not relying on a third party to make your products. You're making it in a facility that's compliant, and you don't have to own the facility either. So completely flexible there. If you have used CMOs, then you know very well that they have a very tight schedule. Again, because there is a lot of demand and not enough manufacturing capacity in the world today for biopharma, especially some of the innovations that's happening in cell and gene therapy. So this model really gives you the flexibility to make as many batches as you want, as long as you have the operators, the raw materials available to you. There's really nothing stopping you. We don't have a schedule that we will stop you from manufacturing your batches. And last but not least, all the clients that are in our facilities right now are seeing at least $1 million, if not more, in a year of cost savings. And for some, it's about 5-fold that compared to what a CMO would charge or what they would have to pay if they built their own facility. So that's kind of the value proposition that we have to bring to the table. In terms of current state, like I mentioned, we'll have 6 clean rooms by the end of the year, all 6 of which are gone. We have a waiting list of about 8. And we feel that, and these are all clean rooms that are in Waltham, Massachusetts right now, catering primarily to the Cambridge sector. But we're seeing that the saturation has not, we haven't even reached anywhere close to saturation. So we see ourselves building more clean rooms in Cambridge, but also in all the other hubs. I think we're going to start with San Diego next year, potentially San Francisco, North Carolina, New Jersey, Maryland, and so on. So that's kind of our plan. I think that's it for the slide deck. I'm happy to answer any questions. Do we have a mic for the questions, or? No mic. Yeah, feel free to yell out any questions if you have any. I think I'm doing pretty good on time. So the way to look at this business is it's like a CMO, except there's no M. We don't manufacture anything. We own the facility, right? So we don't supply the raw materials necessarily. We will order it for our clients, we'll stage it, and so on. So we don't. To answer your question more directly, we don't. We own some of the equipment, things like refrigerators, freezers, biosafety cabinets, and then we partner with our clients to buy additional equipment if needed. But most of our clients bring their own equipment because they customize it, or it's custom to their process. Yeah, so the design is basically it's a once through. The fan filter units on top of each clean room suck in air from the plenum, and its positive pressures from the core, ISO 7 to ISO 8, to the gown in and gown out areas, which are separate for unidirectional flow of personnel and materials. So at any given point of time, air is constantly blowing out, it's positive pressure, so there's very minimal risk of incursion of any particulates from the outside. That's how it's been designed. Having said that, for Synologic, that one particular client had a very specific need, we created a containment room for their lyophilization operation. They have an E. coli manufacturing process. The final drug product is actually lyophilized E. coli powder in bags. So we created that room specifically with containment, with its own HVAC dehumidification unit, which is completely segregated from the rest of the facility. So we understand those sort of needs. Now, there are other players out there in the market, GE being one, right? They build the facility, they build the pods. We don't necessarily build it, meaning we don't fabricate it ourselves. But what we bring to the table is we can have our partners build it, but we provide all the other expertise that typically is not available in the industry. Right? So that's what we pride ourselves. In addition to consulting and clean rooms, we have labs, right? We have a training division, we have an IT division. So it's really an end-to-end solution for early phase companies. Someday we should be able to get up there and say, you have a molecule, you don't really have the expertise for anything else, well, come to us. We will really help you get to that first GMP batch and maybe even beyond that. So a lot of our clients that come in are R&D clients that have never done GMP. Some that have done a little bit of GMP, maybe relying on CMOs and want to de-risk themselves, right? But really, for us, they are partners lifelong. Even after they leave our facility, after hopefully their clinical trials are successful, they'll build their own facility. We are their partners. We'll help them through that process as well because we have that expertise. So really, I guess to summarize, the whole concept of this business came from the pains that we saw while we were representing our clients. So to give you an example, I was the acting head of quality for a startup, not a startup anymore, in Cambridge, and we would tour CMOs, we would tour warehouses, and we had two issues. Either there was a capability issue, which means expertise, or there was a capacity issue. 9 times out of 10, it was a capacity issue, right? There's just not enough capacity. That's where the idea came about. We said, okay, we'll build a small warehouse, maybe one clean room. And what we saw that the demand is so high that we almost pivoting to saying, you know what, instead of us being primarily a consulting firm, maybe we need to pivot to being primarily the total integration solution provider kind of a business. And this is kind of the start of that, genesis of that, I guess. So, any other questions? there's a little bit of, so first off, it's early phase, right? So there is no, well, unless it's for cause, there's no reason for the FDA to come visit our facility. Second, we don't manufacture, so we don't fall under a CMO as well. So I'm not sure there is a clear, right or wrong as to whether we should be inspected or not. But right now, there is nothing in the FDA website that categorizes a business like ours. So we have to figure that out as we go. In terms of the quality system, we own all the quality systems related to the facility, utilities, systems, and equipment that we own and we maintain. Anything that happens in the clean room, so for example, if a client brings in a bioreactor, it's at the end, they are responsible for the product quality, hence they are responsible for those assets. But then we help calibrate, qualify those. So they rely heavily on us for those activities. But in terms of batch records and release of their batches, it's completely their ownership and their quality system. Now, the way we address that is we put that all in a quality agreement up front as to who's responsible for what. And it's a flexible model. If you as a client come in and say, look, I have a raw material management program, I'm all set, materials will come in pre-released, all you need to do is stage it, bring it to the clean room, no problem. The flip side, the client comes and says, look, I don't even have a quality policy. Where do I start? So we'll say, okay, rely as much as you can on our quality systems. We'll help you develop your own quality systems for the rest that you pretty much have to own by law because you're the license holder of the product. And we can help you with that. So it's really a la carte menu sort of option, which is really appealing for clients because you cannot say, look, you take it or leave it. Our entire quality system is something that you have to follow whether you need it or not. That won't work for early phase, right? So that's the other thing that's not very clear in the slide deck is we have a phase-appropriate GMP program. Meaning just because I release my materials that I use in my lab for testing with the most stringent quality, I'm not going to force you because you're going to make an engineering batch, maybe not even a phase 1 batch. So that is slightly different from a CMO where the CMOs don't have a luxury of doing that because they pretty much have to treat all their clients very similarly. Otherwise, their quality systems are going to be questioned, right? So, great question though. Yep. Yes. Yep. So, even before a client comes on board and signs up, we disclose to them all the risks that we have in our facility, all the permits that we have, all the different kinds of products that we have ongoing in our facility, and have them evaluate to see if that's going to be a good fit or not. We also do a risk assessment at our end each and every time a client comes in with the process, where we look at all the materials, anything that's hazardous, make sure we have the permits and make sure we have the controls in place to house them as well. So yeah, all that is done even before the client walks in. It is a shared space, however, so there is active manufacturing going on in adjacent suites that actually share the gown in and gown out. But the facility, the clean rooms have been designed such that there is really very, very minimal risk of cross-contamination between the adjacent suites because of interlocking, because of the pressure monitoring, the way the air handler works. So yeah, we have sort of thought through those. Yeah. Now it gets very challenging when you start you have a client that is a client of has 4 employees in it and doesn't have a quality unit. That's when you have to do some education with them. Now, we have a consulting division that is a different LLC, so we are able to bring in like a quality consultant if needed for that client as well. But yeah, great question. Shelly. Yeah. So every client that comes in gets a unique alphanumeric code. So throughout their stay with us, journey with us, they get that alphanumeric code that goes on their equipment, their materials. So if someone were to walk into the warehouse during an audit or something, they see that alphanumeric code and not necessarily a client's name, right? The second thing is we don't ask for any details of your process. We just ask the pertinent details that would require us to get any permits that we need. Like Do you have any flammables? Do you have any high potency compounds, which are not allowed in our facility, but just as an example. That's the reason we need to know a little bit about your process. Other than that, keep your IP to yourself. That's actually a value proposition that we are bringing to the table. So, sure. Yep. So everybody who's in the facility gets a badge. They can only get a badge if they are trained. The training includes the safety, biohazards training, but also intro to GMP training and some about a dozen of our SOPs, housekeeping, material and personal flow, blah 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 blah. Until and unless they completely complete that training, they won't get a badge. Second, each badge only works in specific areas. So if there are 6 clients in the facility, their badges will only work in shared areas like the break room, for example, or like the front door. But in terms of the clean areas, they can only go through one door which goes into their room. They cannot accidentally enter another room. Everything is interlocked, so they cannot accidentally open one door and then keep another door open. So yeah, that's kind of our primary control. Having said that, we also have cameras, we also have logs as to who entered where, as a like a post-mortem if we had to do it after the fact. Yep. Great. Thank you for your attention.